Hey everyone, it's James from Peakway Software again, and it's been like 4 months since we've had our last update video, but we're here today to let you know the game is still alive and well and in development. And the reason why it's been so long is, after we had the failed Kickstarter, we really felt we needed to reevaluate, ourselves and where the game was, and we really wanted to wait till we had something more substantial, something that really showed off what the game could be like more in its final state. So this video is going to be pretty lengthy compared to our other updates because we just got so much more done in that 4-month span, but we'll start with the first elephant in the room, which will be the combat. So right now it's really an early prototype stage, so later down the line it's going to look and feel like a lot better, a lot different. And as far as the stability right now, it really only works best on monsters and not the human NPCs. Right now the human NPCs aren't dying correctly. We still have a lot of work to do with the ragdolls to get that functioning. But really it's just the basis of combat is there, and it works with the other features that we're going to explain later in the video. So basically the way it works right now is you hold down the left click and that'll do your basic normal attacks. We don't have the power attacks in yet, but after you kill a monster, they'll die, do their death animation, and then you can loot their bodies. So since we're on the subject of looting, now will probably be a good time to explain the changes we've made to the inventory system. So you can now hold gold and separate items by type, whereas before it was just, a blank UI with a list of items. So now you can actually drop items, you can equip and unequip weapons and armor, you can assign items to quick slots using hotkeys, you can also loot containers, and the cool thing about that is you can set the item percentages in the containers. So you can have, a bunch of barrels, per se, that have the same items in them for their, drop list, but you can always get different things from them depending on what the percentages are. So the next thing on the list is probably something you've noticed by now in the video, and that's the visual changes that we've made to the game since our last update video. We spent a lot of time replacing the whole natural environment, so things like the terrain textures are all changed now. We have all sorts of new types of grass, bushes, and trees. A lot of the old stuff we had is almost all of it's completely gone as far as the natural environment like foliage goes. And we've tried to make as much use of online resources and asset stores as we could. So now we have about triple the amount of objects compared to what we used to have that level designers can now get their hands on. And that's pretty cool. It sort of feels like we have close to the amount of objects we would need to actually fill up a RPG world and create an RPG experience. It's not that far off from being to that point, object-wise, when you talk about the pure number of objects you would need. So the next feature we've added is more of a quality of life feature for level designers, and that's building prefabs. So basically what you do is you make a building, you set it up, you set the layout up, and you think, it'd be cool if I could use this building again. So what you do is you actually save that building out as a prefab and you place it again like an object. Now one of the best things about this is that all the objects you place inside that building, like furniture for instance, are saved in the prefab itself. So you can place a building down and it can already be furnished, and then the only thing you have to do is just add little items that your character can pick up inside the building. Also, these buildings aren't static. You can change them just like you could any building. So you can basically have the same sort of building layout and then change the walls, the roof types, the roof end pieces, or even, extrude the building more if you wanted to. So this is just another one of those things that we're working on that helps empower the player's creativity and speed up the time that it would take to build something like a city or a town. But moving on from that, I want to talk about optimization and general performance of the project as a whole. Before, in our crowded areas, we were only able to hold 30 FPS at most, and this wasn't even any impressive sort of scenes. There was a couple buildings, there had some objects in them, but we've drastically increased the performance using our own custom systems. I'm not going to go into detail of exactly what they are because that would just take too long, but basically we've been able to double our density and also double or triple our performance compared to what we used to have. So the project as a whole is at a much more stable place optimization wise, but there's still more work to be done. In particular with the human NPCs, if you start to place them all over the place, it definitely starts to bog the system down. So now that we're on the subject of NPCs, I should go ahead and explain to you what it is you can do with them in the game at this point. So just some of the features we have are straight up, full conversation trees. You can program the AI within the game. You basically access their brain, and it's a system of simple if and then statements, and you can also set requirements before each statement. All the functions are pretty self-explanatory, but a few examples would be telling them to patrol a certain path, tell them to patrol a certain radius, determine their gear and inventory, the trade interface, give and take items to attack, flee. That's just some of the, individual things you can do. There's plenty more. One of the cool examples that I set up just for some AI functionality is that there's a sheep next to the inside the farm, where if you walk up to him and you have an apple, you have the option to feed the sheep and then he follows you after that. But one of the cool things is you don't actually get that choice unless you already have the apple in your inventory. So if you walk up to him normally, there's no real interaction to be had there. So we do officially have quests in now, and they're limited by the complexity of the NPC logic. And the example that I have set up right now is there's a guard who will assign you a quest to go to a manor that is behind a mountain close to the town, and he wants you to kill sort of the head wraith that's inside of the manor itself. So when you go to the manor and you kill the wraith, he drops a unique skull, and when you bring that skull back to the guard, he checks to make sure you have it, and then he gives you your reward for the quest. Alright, so next up is the character customization that we have at this point. So you can customize the NPCs, like their facial features, their hair color, their skin color, and there's a lot more sliders and stuff we can add later. We also don't have hairstyles at the moment, but this is the groundwork for what's going to become the player character system. And it's pretty cool that now we can actually create NPCs that look different from each other, even though it's still in a very limited state until we start to get things like hairstyles in. So for the last thing of this update, we've overhauled the random level generation. To start off, we have 5 times more terrain stamps, which exponentially creates more combinations for different islands. We actually have stamps now that are specific for shorelines. So before we just sort of had like a linear fall off to make it turn into a shoreline, but everything looked the same and kind of boring, and now there's a lot more variation and it just looks more organic this way. And before, when you would generate a level, you basically get the terrain and then it would apply a forest all through it, so the forest biome would be the only biome really present. And now we have a system where you can apply multiple biomes to a level and assign different weights to them, and they'll randomly be placed within the level itself. So you can have the level generate on its own with forests placed randomly, with grass fields placed randomly, with grass fields with flowers for some of them. You can have rocky areas be placed in there as well. So now we actually generate levels that are more functional and game ready out of the box. So before you had to pretty much just clear out wherever the forest was if you wanted to place down city and towns, but now you actually have areas that already work for putting down cities and towns. You don't have to do any additional work to make the level more believable and more natural. That's just done for you. And that sort of goes back to what we were doing with the building prefabs. Is the whole point is to make it easy for people to make levels. That way there can be a lot of user-generated content and stuff to play all the time. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. This build won't be up for another week or two, so be sure to keep an eye out for that on our website. We actually might be changing our website provider soon, so that would mean a new site with the forums would be wiped as well. So it might actually be better to check our Facebook or our Twitter, so make sure to look for us at Twitter at Peakway Software and on Facebook at Isles of Arthanos. So the goal of these videos is to do these every month, but that's not really set in stone. If there's a new feature that we want to show off that needs more development, we will put the video out later, and that way the feature is more showable. And one thing on a side note is that we do have a Discord server now, so if you just want to jump in and chat with us about the game, we have the link for that in the description on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. So thanks so much for showing interest in our games, and we'll see you next time.